Now, Gary H. Carr, in his work En route to global occupation, puts it this way. He says there were the ancient mystery religions which come from Babylon, and they were pantheistic, of course, which means God is in nature, God is in everything, which in effect makes us God then too. This was inculcated in Kabbalism, was taken over in the Christian era in what is called Gnosticism, and the Knights Templars were the inner secret core that had the ancient knowledge of the mystics. This was carried further through Rosicrucianism, Freemasonry and the Illuminati, which according to Gary Carr controls Marxism, American European secret societies and political societies, international banking, and the World Council of Churches. Now the Templars, they had their secret inner information inculcated in the Rosicrucians and the Jesuits. The Jesuits, again, formed and created Freemasonry. And Freemasonry was created as the Protestant arm of the Roman Catholic Church. Unbeknown to them, beguiled, fooled, if you like, into doing the work that Rome wanted them to do, so that Rome could sit in the background while Freemasonry did it for them.
Louis XV said to Jesuit General Lorenzo Ricci, he said, please let the Jesuit order change some way. And Lorenzo Ricci said, let them be as they are, or else not be. So the Jesuits never changed. So what did they do? They went underground, and they started a series of networks. And one of those networks was the Bavarian Illuminati, because Bavaria was the strongest Jesuit stronghold north of the Alps, which throws light on who really started the Nazi war machine out of Bavaria. So the Jesuits start the Illuminati with Adam Weishaupt out of Bavaria, and they then import the French Revolution into France because the Jesuits were protected during their suppression by the Lutheran, or Frederick the Great, and by the Russian Catherine the Great. So the Jesuits are protected by a Russian monarch and by a German monarch, a Lutheran monarch, which Frederick should have never done. But you see, Frederick was the head of all Freemasonry on the continent. And so the Jesuits used Frederick then to write the last 8 degrees up to the 33rd degree. Frederick starts the Council of the 33rd degree, and then it was the work of Frederick and the Jesuits who ultimately they imported the French Revolution into France through the Grand Orient Lodge. Because now we have what's called Illuminized Freemasonry.
In this case, the saying, all roads lead to Rome, is most certainly applicable. Adam Weishaupt, founder of the Illuminati, and Voltaire, author of the Charter of Human Rights, and both motivators of the French Revolution, were Jesuit trained and included the essence of that institution's philosophy and methodology into their own organizations.
The Illuminati was created through Weishaupt, and of course is also the father of modern communism, who with his Jacobins conducted the French Revolution. Years later, Jesuit General Ledochowski with his Bolsheviks conducted the Russian Revolution in 1917, and it's identical to the other revolution. Let's have a look at Freemasons. The Grand Design Exposed says, the truth is the Jesuits of Rome have perfected Freemasonry to be their most magnificent and effective tool, accomplishing their purposes among Protestants. Now surely the members of Freemasonry themselves must be deceived, because if they saw it, they wouldn't do it, right? So actually, the order is being used, and they themselves are deceived. And only within the order, higher up, are those chosen ones who know, and they are controlled by the Jesuits for Rome. Very clever. Very clever. To make Protestantism do what you cannot do openly because you have been fingered by Protestantism as the Antichrist.
Based on these evidences, the religio-political claims of the papal system and the prophetic time frames given for her rule, many modern-day biblical scholars and researchers into secret subversive organizations have concluded that no other institution other than Rome can fit the prophetic profile. Added to these evidences is the testimony of the Protestant reformers, who clearly, through their own studies of Daniel and Revelation, saw Rome as the Antichrist power described in Bible prophecy. When studying the book of Revelation chapter 13 and applying the principles of interpreting prophetic symbolism, the full impact of what begins to unfold in Daniel and the direct connection it has to this very era starts to become frightfully clear. The first beast of this chapter, that contains elements of a leopard, a bear, and a lion, seem to indicate that John is seeing the primary elements of the vision of Daniel 7 in reverse. These powers have passed, and qualities of their systems, judicial, political, and religious, survive in the institutions that arise after them, most specifically in the kingdoms and nations that now fall under the authority of Papal Rome.
So this is a conglomerate beast having components, philosophies if you like, of Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and Babylon. And it speaks with the mouth of a lion.
In Daniel 7, we have all of these beasts described in detail. And then when we come to the book of Revelation, verses 1 and 2, it describes an amalgamation of all the beasts in Daniel 7 put together. And the Bible student would recognize when they come to Revelation 13 that this is taken word for word from Daniel as far as the beast combining. And not only that, the description of the little horn power in Daniel 7 is the same description we find in Revelation 13. For example, one of those criteria is that it would receive worship, it would speak blasphemy and all sorts of different things, and those are all found in Revelation 13. In Daniel chapter 7 and in Revelation 13, we see the same time period emphasized. The 1,260 days. It's described 7 times in the Bible in many different ways. Time times half a time, 42 months. And we see this exact same time period mentioned in Revelation 13, which describes how long the papal supremacy would be in power, from 538, the decree of Justinian, to 1798, when the papacy was dissolved of its political power, when Berthier marched into Rome and took the Pope captive. So we find all of those clues right there in both of the chapters, Daniel 7 and Revelation 13.
Labanca, professor of history at the University of Rome, says, to the succession of the Caesars came the succession of the pontiffs in Rome. Stanley's history says the popes filled the place of the vacant emperor at Rome, inheriting their power, prestige, titles from paganism. Constantine left all to the Bishop of Rome. This is not true, but nevertheless, the papacy is about but the ghost of the deceased Roman Empire sitting crowned upon its grave. So the legally recognized supremacy of the Pope began in 538 AD and then went into effect the Emperor's decree, as I have said, where he was the corrector of heretics. So Rome today still claims to be the sole one who can determine what you should believe, because the papacy claims infallibility. He even has the title Pontifex Maximus, which belonged to the Roman Emperor. So in effect, the Pope is the Emperor of Rome today.